What's up? My name is Javon, also known as 3v6. Today I just want to show you how I made the song How Many Mistakes off my new album Elephant in the Room. I'll leave a link to the album in the description. I did some cool things on this project. I'm going to leave the master disabled. Move the camera real quick. So I did some cool things on this project, and I feel like whether you're, new to recording or, just need some inspiration, that some of this might, help inspire somebody. So one of the first things that's going on here is, obviously I track all of my vocals using like assigned tracking lanes, like tracking modes, where I assign them, and I'll have like a tracking one where like originally I'd track my vocals into here, and then I just drop them down into my different vocal chains or inserts, right? Some of the stuff, the way it sounds is purposeful. I kind of wanted this project to sound distorted and like overly compressed and just like really loud. So in order to do that, I needed a really clean signal and everything to be really tight all the way. Otherwise, the distortion would be too much and it just wouldn't be enjoyable to listen to. So the way that I achieved that was being like really meticulous with my compression and my EQ. So I'm gonna start with that. The first thing we'll start with is just like the vocals. So.
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call.
If the first thing I want to go through is just kind of like what the main vocal chain is. For the most part, it's pretty standard. It's nothing like too insane. Like I got auto tune going, really fast retune speed, kind of making it sound robotic. This one I actually don't. I normally would have the flex tune up to like 2, humanized to 20, but just for this song, for whatever reason, I just had it on 0, just really simple. This is then I de-ess it right afterwards, and I'm de-essing like the frequency where a lot of my sibilance is around 7,500 hertz. So do that. It's quite a bit of sibilance too. Let me find a better.
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Wash my hands, look in the mirror, still ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And
so like not really like an insane amount of de-essing on this stage, because like I said, we're gonna want a really clean signal all the way through, and we're gonna run this through like multiple layers of processing. So I really just need to get some of the sibilance out in this first step. All right, so this is a gate, and then also this is a gate, and then also a compressor. I have this compressing about 7.
Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my.
We're getting about like -7 decibels is like the range of where I start compressing my threshold, and that's gonna give
Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt.
Like 32 decibels of compression, which is a lot. You have to understand though, at this stage, the signal is really low. It's really low, and like so the noise floor is pretty close to it. Compressing it that much kind of doesn't make sense at first glance, but effectively what I'm trying to do more than anything else is just give us a really tight signal going in. Like if we were to put I don't know, let's get like span.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And I'm still trying to ball.
-10 across the board here at the highest in terms of our peaks. So, what we have is a relatively, I don't want to say quiet, but it's been brought to like listenable, because before that it was way lower than that. And which kind of gives us more ability to like play with it more in terms of EQing and stuff. Um, I ran it through Pro Q3. This is just like my room Pro Q. This is just to get rid of some of the bad frequencies, pretty standard stuff. This is like the shaping EQ I use. Oh yeah, I forgot. Fucking FL does it like that. This is just like to shape it, give me more high end. This is a lot looser. I put this on a lot of my vocals just because I found that this kind of generally sounds good. It's gonna get compressed again after this, so some of the EQ these two stages of EQing, in all honesty, aren't that important, but I just feel that they help clean up my signal. I'm gonna EQ again, or I'm gonna compress again with this solid bus comp, and what this was originally for, I could put it all the way low like that, but what this really is to grab not the transients, but the louder consonants, the louder parts of the beginnings of words and stuff. Really fast release, relatively fast attack. Threshold -6.4. Makeup is 6.4. Just a ratio of 3. We're getting about
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another
4 decibels of compression along the board. Really not that crazy, but compressing the signal again after like taking out a decent amount. I mean, we're removing a decent amount of the signal from with these two EQs that you saw before. So compressing it's going to kind of squeeze back some of those frequencies. Then I'm going to take this like an LA2A, and this one's going to be doing actually some.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, you gonna call.
It's almost like, I think of this one as functioning more so like a limiter than a compressor, which I know that I could technically set it to limit, but it is, I really do just want to compress it. But think about it this way: whenever the loudest part of that compressed signal comes, at this point we've squeezed the whole thing down quite a bit with this first RVox. Then with the second one, we've grabbed like the louder parts of like the consonants and like, I don't want to say the transients, but all of the like louder, first parts of the words, or, anytime that it gets more dynamic, and we've grabbed onto those pretty quickly and squeezed that down with the rest of it. And now what I want to do is take this whole signal after this EQing and stuff, and after grabbing this, and I want to, anytime the signal is anything like, pretty much we're going to kill all the dynamics without introducing too much distortion. The idea is that like with these multiple different stages of compression, that we can do a heavy amount of compression without introducing the distortion that one of these would probably start to show if we try to do this all in one. Breaking up the load on the compressors is really, really what I think defines the sound of this project, because it is a very like speaking really close into the mic sound, and it is compressed as hell, but I think that it sounds pretty good.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, you gonna call.
And, even though it's at this point a pretty non-dynamic signal, you can still kind of feel when the emphasis is getting put in, because the different stages of compression allow there to be, I guess, more saturation during the more dynamic parts of the performance. This is finally the like only EQ that like really matters. I'm cutting everything out below 168 at like 12 decibels per octave. I am shelving off just this low mid region a lot. This is kind of a stupid EQ. I could have done this with like a prettier curve, but I did this like kind of fast, and like sometimes I'll just start spamming points and just make it sound the way I want it to. And then I'll have a boost. We can turn some of this off to give you.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way.
Let me just turn it off in first place.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Rolling up.
And I suppose here, I'll tell you what. I'm going to show you what it sounds like before the compression.
Look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, you gonna call. And I'm still trying to ball. How many more mistakes until I let myself fall?
So you can probably hear from this, like kicking this up, kind of fighting some of that sibilance harshness and the high end right there. Again, and then I'm going to add some of this stuff back actually by saturating it.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way.
Another thing that I did with this sound is that I'm not going to saturate like any of the lows. Anything below like 350 is what I would consider low for this vocal. And for a lot of this project, I mean, we're trying to really focus on the mids, clean tape, simple Saturn II preset, driving at 20%, 100% gain, um, and a little bit of clean tape on the highs to 15.58, which in retrospect, I probably didn't need because with just this vocal alone,
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And I'm still trying to ball. How many more mistakes until I let myself fall?
So pretty good, solid mono signal we got here. We're peaking at like what?
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way.
9 decimals, and it seems like negative 9 decibels dBFS, and so like I wouldn't call it's not a very hot vocal. It's damn near limited at negative 9. And it does sound good, although
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another.
It does sound a little bit thin in my opinion, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to parallel compress it.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way.
We're going to give some of that beef back. Pro C, ratio of 10, threshold super low, attack super slow, release super fast.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Rolling.
Absolutely smashing it. Turning it down, you know, EQing it, killing some of the low mids, killing some of the sibilants with this, just so I don't have to put de-esser on it. Mix it down into it.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And I'm still trying to ball. How many more mistakes until I let myself fall? Grab.
Kind of giving like it more of a room sound, which I know would normally seem unattractive for this, but it does give the beef back and into the vocal, and considering the, I don't know, the lack of audio treatment that I have in this recording environment, I still want to get that thickness, and this way, although it can be controlled a little bit with this gate, in all honesty, I probably could have put another gate on there too to try to control it more, but at a certain point you just have to accept the recording environment. And so basically the parallel compression is what's beefing up this vocal. The next thing I did was add some reverb.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way.
All right, so with this reverb, I did some different things. Now, first of all, a defining sound on this project is that like I'm doing short reverb times. Like anything like I want to be in the ones like at this point. Like these long if you really think about it, like what I do is if you're not familiar with the basic formula to do any timing based effects, whether it's a delay or a reverb, you can use it for limiters, you can use it for decay times and any time, you could use it for attack times and release times for compressors or really anything. You don't have to in every case, but you can take 60,000 and then divide it by your BPM, and then just divide that number by 2 until you get a number that looks pretty to you or that you like. In this case, I brought it down to here. This will let it make sure that the tails of all of your, you know, effects or your attack times or your decay times, whatever, end on beat. And so this is a pretty short reverb. If I make it any longer.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And
you know, I don't really want that, you know, like I want it to be tight. What I'm really trying to do more than anything else is to overlay this room sound and like actually.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way.
So now instead of like focusing on the room sound that we kind of introduced.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way.
Now I kind of have my reverb sounding like my room sound, and I think it sounds pretty good, and also adds some beef to the vocals. I compress it. Realistically, what I could have also done, what I did on some of the other songs in this project, is sidechain the reverb. And so what that would mean is like I would take like a Fruity limiter and I would put it on compress. I would sidechain it from Vox 1. When this is playing, I would set the ratio all the way up to 10. And
wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And I'm still trying to ball. How many more mistakes until I let myself fall? Grab another tissue, another eye roll, I'm gone.
We should make the reverb only swell when I wasn't speaking. But for this song, I really didn't need that. What I really wanted was to define the room sound and fill out the vocal a little bit more.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way.
And then finally, and like the biggest thing I think that adds a lot to this vocal that I'm going to go over real quick is the doubler. So doubler to mono stereo. If you want, you can copy these settings. Doing this in parallel really changes things. I kill the high shelf that it puts on it by default. Roll off some of the low end. That's not really important because I'm going to EQ it afterwards anyways. Turn down the gain on the direct one just all the way. You could just turn it off if you want. Like,
wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gun.
Probably should just turn it off, but it's the same thing. And then I took these all the way up, and I changed the alignment on these a little bit from the default as well. Just a couple seconds of delay off. Cool. Pretty standard EQ thing you'll see me doing like over all my effects. Again, like with the sound, everything needs to be really, really tight. I'm just chopping off everything 48 decibels per octave at like 160, pretty similar to my other main vocal in terms of the region, 160, but at a much steeper slope, and then just annihilating the like low mids, 2.5 decibels, which realistically isn't that much. But since we're going to be adding it all together into one, it gives you this.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gun.
All right. So with the beat on.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And I'm still trying to ball. How many?
Oh yeah, I have a delay on here too. So it's 1/2, decent filter on it, 100% wet. I have a fruity balance just to cut it off.
Wash my hands, look
for when I don't want it playing. So for the purposes of this, I'm just gonna have it off for now, but I'll explain how that works later. I do want to kind of go over what's going on with this vocal master and the beat, because all of these effects, anything that has to do with vocals, is going to run into this vocal master. And I'm going to take this Vox 1, main vocal chain. I'm going to side chain it. Right? And then I'm running this into a track spacer. Let me just make sure it's still connected, even though I changed it. Cool. So every song is different, and the way that I use this varied pretty drastically from song to song. I have the ratio on 1 to 0.4%. This is basically just a spectral compressor, if you will. So it's just going to cut out the frequencies that the Vox 1 sends over the beat while it's playing.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt.
If I were to turn it way more up.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll.
I used it pretty sparsely on this song because the beat in of itself doesn't have a lot going on in that region, and it just doesn't really need that much right there. I chose to do it from just the Vox instead of the larger vocal master side chaining on this song, which I didn't do on every song, but you could also side chain it from your vocal master. In some cases, that's better for busier beats. But I chose to do it on this one just because, again, this beat is pretty sparse in the mids and high mids region especially. So my vocals were sitting pretty fine in there as it was. So I don't have any of these effects enabled right here. So over here, these are effects that are going to come in and go out, just kind of like, vocal effects, whether it's like a filter. I have like a flangus that's kind of for the hook to signal, give it some stereo width. Valhalla Vintage Verb, probably for some reverb swells. I'll have to double check. And then mainly what I'm doing on here, fresh air, giving it 6% midair. Here, we'll turn this on. And we'll just
wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call.
We're gonna DS again. Anytime I add fresh air, I DS afterwards.
Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And
another -3 decibels at most of DSing. At this point, the S's sound pretty natural to me. At least we're not getting any harsh sibilants. Another EQ. Again, you can kind of see how like as we go up the stages, they're kind of getting more extreme in terms of where I'm cutting them, because we're just adding so much more signal. And so this is a pretty beefy signal.
Watch my hands look in the mirror.
Before I have this EQ.
Watch my hands look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call, and I'm still trying to ball.
Pretty beefy. We're gonna thin it out again. 111 by 111 hertz, 30 decibels per octave. Knock down some of those low mids again. Knock down some of the highs. All right. So on the beat itself, I also wanted to make my vocals fit better in it. So the way I did
Watch
that,
my hands look
first and foremost, is I'm gonna let's disable this stuff first. Okay.
Watch my hands look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll.
I'm gonna add like 1.6 decibels in the middle, or into the bass fundamental frequency around 50 hertz, just in the mid. I'm using mid side processing for this, just to give our bass like a stronger mid signal. Then I want to make some room for my vocals, so I sidechained the vocals to. Like I said, like Vox 1 is running sidechain to this. So in here, whenever the vocals are playing, it's actually gonna
watch my hands look in the
in here, if you're unfamiliar with FabFilter. So my vocals are actually gonna overlay over the beat, and I just found this area.
Watch my hands look in the mirror, don't see another way. Rolling.
This area where the 500 is.
Watch my hands look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call, and I'm still trying to ball. How many more mistakes until I let myself fall?
I like it because it kind of just pushes that small area in the 500 region where there's a lot of mud builds up out of the way, and so the vocals kind of have more room in that area to sit. It makes it feel like when that filter enacts, to me it makes it sound like the beat is reacting to the vocals rather than just having the vocals sit on top of it. To kind of like piggyback off of that, I took these mid regions, and you can get pretty extreme with this, and just took the side region, like, cause this is how it sounds.
Watch my hands look in the mirror, don't see another way.
The vocals are just way too much dominating this beat, so I'm gonna give the beat some more side information, so it sounds like it's kind of wrapping around the mostly mono signal.
Watch my hands look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another.
I wouldn't say it's mostly mono because of the doubler, but we're gonna add some of this to fight back against that doubler that's on the side.
Watch my hands look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call, and I'm still trying to ball. How many more mistakes until I let myself fall? Grab another tissue, another eye roll, I'm gone.
So, yeah. All right. After that, we're gonna do some magic with some multiband compression. All right. So again, I wanted this song and this album in general just to sound pretty bass heavy, loud, compressed. I wanted it to sound distorted, but I wanted it to be controlled. So the way that I did this is I basically went in here and I like looked and measured like each of these regions by like turning off the vocals and kind of just like, that's obviously the bass. And here I kind of have that like, I don't know, upper bass, like where that like bass like transient, or not the transient, but like maybe like, you know, your kick transient would be hitting or something. This doesn't have a kick, but it's still that same area. This is kind of like that like ding is like a pretty iconic part of the song, I feel. So I wanted to have an area that was pretty much dedicated to that area. And this is also like in that 500 region that we kind of were cutting out with the EQ. So dedicating this and giving it back like 1.5 gigabytes, or Jesus Christ, decibels of gain back, especially just kind of focusing on that one part, I feel kind of balanced it out a little bit. The mids with a little bit of the highs in them. less important. High is also less important. So really just a boost going on in this like, low mids and low area. This one's important. I did this on most of my songs. So I identified where the drums were hitting. One second. It's tweaking out. If you ever get that, you can just switch Smart Disable for all plugins, and usually that should help. Should. So as you can see, this part right here, kind of that transient region I was talking about. A little bit of that 808 transient's hitting there, and also the snare transient's definitely hitting there, like the body of it is. This is like where you get that like air of the snare hitting. This is the high end. All the hi-hats and stuff. Adding like 3/10 of a decibel gain right there, whatever. Yeah, just small stuff on these, but really just isolating the drums and giving that some, it kind of helps. And I'm not compressing any of this stuff here. What I would do on other songs and also could have done here is I could have added some expansion to give some of those transients some more room. That's a really good way of like opening up an already compressed, MP3 wave file beat that's already been, not compressed, limited. If you want to give it some some room for you to fit your vocal back in, you can take these and give it some expansion. And so let's do this. So we're gonna do expand. We're gonna do expand by a ratio of like 3 to 1 or something close to it. We're gonna put a threshold. And we'll do, how about we make it pretty extreme? Let's do like 8 to 1 just for this. Right, so you can kind of hear it. Just kind of gives you some more room to fit your vocals in, and you could do that with the bass, the snare, the hi-hats if you really want to, a kick if you have one for sure, and it'll give you more space to work with. So yeah, that's for the most part, that's what's going on there. All right. So with this Vocal Master and all this going together, I'm gonna go ahead and bounce. Well, I'm gonna explain some of these effects that I got going on because they are kind of important and like make sense to explain. Let's just turn it all on.
Mistakes until I let myself fall.
So for my delay, I pretty much have it off all the time, except for when I want it to come in, and I control that with a fruity balance, one of two. So it's just default to 0, and then when I have these gaps and I want to hear it.
Call, and I'm still trying to ball. How many more mistakes until I let myself fall? Grab another tissue.
You can do that again with what I showed you earlier with sidechaining, but in this case I wanted it to be pretty surgical and only happen when I told it to. So that's a pretty good compromise. It's a pretty easy way of doing it. It's just literally just grabbing a fruity balance and then just creating an automation clip and drawing what you want it to turn on and off. Cool. All right. So we have some other kind of cool stuff going on over here. If you guys need, here, let's talk about some of these cuts.
worth it. Take another hit to stop the hurt.
So that right there is it's a fruity convolver. I don't even know where it is. Yeah. And then you can just copy this preset if you want. Yeah, pretty simple. I think that this impulse is like default, like in there. I don't really remember how I made this, to be honest. I made it years ago, or got it years ago, whatever. Yeah. So some of the things I did to transition the song and move it forward during areas of going from, if you're having a hard time defining different areas, signaling to the listener when stuff is happening, pretty essential to making your different sections of your song feel justified and also like kind of like they actually are happening, not just like, I don't know. You're going from
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone.
Pre-intro, pitch, 24 cents down.
I'm gone.
Delay on that, pitch down.
Ain't it still yesterday?
Swell into it. This is a reverse reverb swell. So I would take this vocal, I'd put a reverb on it. I'd reverse it first. I'd put a reverb on it. Then it would give me, I'd put like Edison on. I'd record the vocal as its decay time, the reverb decays out. And on that reverse vocal, take that out as Edison, put it back into here, reverse that, cut off the reverb tail. That's what that looks like. Normalize it, reverse it. So that's really, so that it's the beginning of this reverb tail coming in. Now, something that I do with my reverbs as well is to differentiate them is I use a tremolo, and put the depth, moderately low depending on the song. I have this one on a square wave. You can also put it on like a pan. Here, let's actually play around with this so that you guys can hear the different things you can do with it. So as you can see, there's like a lot of, there's a lot of flexibility in like sounds you can make. But for this instance, this one worked for me.
Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And I'm still trying to ball. How many more mistakes until I let myself fall? Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Taking all these drugs, I feel like.
Now I could put these two vocals together and actually like, fade them in to each other. So it really wouldn't.
I'm gone. Taking all these drugs, I feel.
It's gonna give me that kind of like dropout, and also I want to kind of hear the end tails of these words as the other one starts. It kind of gives it like a, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of, what's it called, rushing feeling.
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Taking all these drugs, I feel like Pablo Cheech Chong. Party's not the issue. Taking all these drugs, I feel like Pablo Cheech Chong. Party's not the issue. I be high low, high strong. Take another hit until I'm right on.
Altar Boy.
Taking all these drugs, I feel like Pablo Cheech Chong. Party's not. Take another hit until I'm right on.
Altar Boy set to -10 or +10 format. no drive, mixed in, turned down a little bit, sent to the vocal master. Pretty simple. Turned on with the balance. You could automate. The reason why I don't like to automate, well, first of all, like the levels internally on these, like the mix on this, like it would have just, if I automate that, then it's just gonna send another dry signal to it. Automating this slider is not going to give me the ability to actually mix in the vocal unless putting like a limiter or like another gain knob on another insert. So I just put a fruity balance whenever I'm trying to, automate volume or gain to activate these.
Take another hit until I'm right on. Can't go on like yesterday. Can't keep folding on my life like it's a fucking game.
I have a vocal master reverb going here, just turning on some vintage verb, longer. This is like not set to the BPM because I really just want this to be more of an effect. It's kind of low. I'm just trying to wash it out, send in the back. We're in a bridge right now. I also have the convolver going on this one, so I have that in parallel. So it's throwing this whole thing pretty back, but without layering another reverb on it. This is just kind of taking the original signal and sending it there. So we're kind of getting a dry, convolved reverse reverb with the main vocal getting like a more washed out and kind of just sends it into the back for this little bridge.
If like it's a fucking game. Got in the morning, let go of the smile that you forcing. Was it really worth it? Take another hit to stop the hurt.
So again, with the these are just reverse reverb swells. This is just a riser that I use. Using risers to signal the different sections is, in my opinion, extremely effective.
If like it's a fucking game.
Kind of out of a verse, going into a bridge. Pretty simple stuff.
Take another hit to stop.
If you want some of that, like the risers I use a lot of bunting stuff. Oh shit. There we go. So like, let me see. I'm not gonna search it right now. It's gonna crash it. Bunting's D&B, 1K sample pack, all these. He's a pretty, I'd say, popular producer on YouTube, and he makes really cool EDM stuff. And a lot of the concepts that I use for mixing are actually from EDM or inspired by EDM, to be honest. And that's how kind of I got to get these songs to be so loud. I'll show you the LUFs at the end, but and this is one of the tamer ones, in all honesty. That being said, you can go on his channel and you can find these type of packs, and they're really great for stuff like this. So again, we're gonna do the vocal pitch. We're also gonna pitch the beat down. I started to send it to stop the hurt. Ain't it still yesterday? I ended up cutting the beat here, so the beat one doesn't really do much. It does kind of grab a little bit of it, seems, but barely. And then what it definitely does is when it jumps back up here, so when it starts, it's going to give it that kind of like lurch. To stop the hurt. Ain't it still yesterday? Cool. And then the vocals obviously getting sent down 24 semitones. Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror, I see another face. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And I'm still going hard. How many more mistakes until I get it, baby doll, baby doll. Repeat of that, pre-cook. And riser into it, cut on the riser, cut on the beat. Repeater of the vocal right here to signal that we're going back into the hook, kind of give it more energy right after the delay. Grab another tissue, another eye roll, I'm gone. Taking all these drugs, I feel like Pablo, Cheech Chong. Party's not the issue, I be high low, high strong. Take another hit until I'm right on. Grab it. So I would take this alter, and for that like little right on at the end, so it's the same alter that I'm using on the rest of the song, but then I'm sending this one actually to another insert. putting a delay on it, keeping the delay 100% wet. The feedback doesn't need to be this high, but it is. It doesn't matter. Putting it 1/2, not filtering it at all. Fruity balance on it. That way I can control when it plays. I just want it to play one time right here. And then that's just going to give us that alter that's playing on top of this vocal right afterwards.
Take another hit until I'm right on. Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Take another.
So this kind of way of brute forcing a lot of these vocal effects is with the fruity balances is kind of the way that I'm able to control how much of the vocal effects are being laid over the beat, which gives me more space to mix loud later on. And also just in general, I think it provides for a tighter sound. Again, using the sliders would kind of defeat the purpose of our gain staging from like a simpler point of view. So I think that like using a fruity balance after like your effects is like an effective way of just making your life easier. And I didn't mention this earlier, but anytime I have like the hook playing, I have this fruity flangus on the Vocal Master turning on. It's really not doing much. Like it's really not doing much. It's 36% on the wet. I have the dry all the way up. Pretty much our dry signal is just going through there with a little bit of stereo width. It's something that's felt, not heard.
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Taking all these drugs, I feel like Pablo. Cheese charm. Party's not the issue. I be
just kind of like subconsciously tells the listener that this is the hook. And yeah, at the end I have some, I have like a fade out with this. And this a delay that just kind of fades off into the sunset, So, long story short, this is a pretty simple song, and some of my other projects have more vocals and more complicated things going on. I got rid of some of my background layers, but just using these effects, I felt like I was able to get the song's idea across and also give a pretty thick and convincing performance. Now, where I think that this entire mixing process and really the purpose of this video, other than to show the vocal chain, really shines is the mastering chain. All right, so I bounced it down to a track just so that we could master this without, having to worry about my CPU blowing up. I'm going to take you through each step that I did because this mastering chain is pretty strange. I also want to make sure that I have, for the most part, that I'm showing the loudness and also the frequency range. Here, let's bring this like right here. We'll leave that like right there. Cool. All right, now I'll be able to grab, I'm gonna make this small, to be honest. Make this way smaller. Okay, cool. So the first thing that I'm gonna do in this one is sometimes I actually would parallel compress it. I would do that with like Buster SE. It's like an analog session plugin. This one didn't need it, so I'm just gonna show what I did. All right, Saturn 2, we have high quality on, should have linear phase on. Let's make sure that we're gonna turn off all the bullshit. Okay, cool.
grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror.
Oh, another important thing, our vocals are hitting at like literally like not loud, or the whole track is.
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone.
Like maximum -3 at the loudest parts, but really sitting at like -6, full scale. I'm gonna saturate it. This is using mid-side saturation, and I'm actually not gonna saturate the lows, anything below 100 hertz whatsoever. The rest of it's gonna be kind of mid-side saturation. This is a Fader Master preset, and then I kind of just adjusted some of the drives a little bit and some of the gains a little bit, and then I faded it in. For now, I don't have it in linear phase, whatever. So we're also going to take it off the high quality, just so that for now we can actually run the CPU. I'm going to try to beef up this low end quite a bit. I want way more contrast.
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And I'm still trying to ball. How many more mistakes until I let myself fall?
Cool. Really just 2 gigabytes in like the punchy setting of this like ozone low end focus, and just some more contrast saturation. Make up for the saturation we weren't doing in Saturn. Cool. God particle. All right. So this is where things kind of start to get different, I feel. Really cool. All right, well, I'll just kind of show the process of doing it right here then, since it wanted to freak out on me.
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone.
First things first, I'm gonna turn off this limiter.
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror.
I'm trying to make these boxes hit these regions hit these boxes. The high doesn't matter.
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call.
Cool. Yeah, mainly just some stereo width, some multiband compression, adding some more to the low end. At this point, we're actually starting to clip. Not very much though. Another Pro Q3. All right, Pro Q3 on the master, cutting everything below 20 hertz. This is outside the range of human hearing. If you're gonna be playing for like, I don't know, if you're gonna be playing at like a really large festival or something like that, maybe you wouldn't want to cut this stuff out. But even then, for the most part, it just doesn't really matter. So I just rolled this off at 36 decibels an octave. There are people who are going to disagree with this, but this is going to give you more room to master louder ultimately, because everything under here is just stuff you're not hearing that's taking up the frequency range and the ability for the speaker to project sound. And so like if we can't hear it, why are we gonna need it? Cutting it out. All the side information below 200 hertz gone. Brick wall. It just, we don't need it. I don't want any of that like low information in the stereo field, like in the sides. There are times in songs where like maybe if you have like a respace where it's going to be occupying this region and it's going to be pretty stereo, you wouldn't want to do this. But for the case of this one, it just works.
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see.
Sounds fine to me. A little bit of a reduction just on the whole thing in stereo, around 265 hertz. We have this disabled, so whatever. Bringing down the highs a little bit. This is going to be for the next stage, and I kind of do this when I'm doing this process. I kind of do this non-linearly, where I'm like adding this stuff and kind of adjusting it back and forth, But rolling off everything around 20,000, a little bit less aggressively, but still pretty important. Just we don't need that high, crazy noise that you can't even hear, and really there's nothing going on here that's super essential. So knocking out all this down like a decibel, almost less. The harshness. Okay, I'm gonna clip this song. We're gonna be setting the ceiling at -3 decibels. I am oversampling it. This quintic clip type just means soft clipping. This would be hard. Anything after this is just more, saturation at a lower threshold. This is just basic soft clipping, in my opinion. There's really no reason to. So for each song, I set a ceiling depending on like how much, like this is going to introduce saturation and distortion. But at this point, in my opinion, we've gotten the signal. I mean, we're clipping a little bit at this point with everything.
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see.
But like barely. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna set a threshold at -3, and I'm gonna say everything after this -3, I want it to saturate. We're gonna be basically setting a ceiling at -3 decibels, and so for all intensive purposes here, this is going to never get above this number, and it's going to be sending everything that does go above that. Instead of chopping it off directly, it's actually just going to fold the waveform over and create some more saturation, some like wider waveforms. So this is what it sounds like.
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And I'm still trying to ball. How many more mistakes until
it makes it sound a little bit grittier. You can also see at this point, we're like sitting in that like pretty regular range actually for a lot of released music today. They say that the range for streaming is supposed to be like somewhere in like the -14 left region. I just don't care about that. It doesn't sound loud enough to me. I want to master loud, and this project especially I wanted to master loud. So I will have these two open. This is going to be my final limiter. Although this is setting a ceiling, it's not really a ceiling. And as you can see, we have a true peak max that is above it. This is going to stop that from happening. I have it set at -2 dBs, and I'm oversampling both of these because I'm going to push it back up. Now, like I said, this was, whoops. Bro. Cool, whatever. So, like I said, -3 decibels down. When this plays, it's showing that we're not really going above that -3. In reality, if I were to play the song for longer, the true peak max is not truly that. So I have this limiter, and I when I work on it, I kind of work with them together to try to decide my amount of distortion. I have the style set to punchy. Default, I have it set to transparent, but punchy usually worked for this. I didn't really adjust the attack and release for this song just because what we're doing with this is not really limiting it. We already limited it with the ceiling. For the most part, we're just trying to get rid of the transients that are going to go above whatever our ceiling is set. So this will give us a good number for this true peak max. And also we're going to try to add some volume because in my opinion, that's not enough. So
grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Ain't it still yesterday?
Now, what this limiter brought out by adding that volume back is some of the saturation that we were adding. We're kind of like cutting out frequencies in the signal, and because we have the bass so much higher than everything else at this point, if we look in the span and we play it,
grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands.
and this isn't even the most extreme song where I did that, but the bass is like the strongest signal in the song. So because of that, this clipper isn't really reacting to the vocals as much. Okay, it's mainly soft clipping and adding saturation to the bass and folding that 808's fundamental frequency down, giving it some saturation, which is going through the whole signal. Now it is creating some aliasing. The oversampling helps with that, but for all intents and purposes, like we're trying to make it sound kind of dirty. We kept it like pretty squeaky clean till this point. This is our dirt that we introduced. Because we set it at -3 as the ceiling, it is introducing like a decent amount. I mean, it's cutting everything. That signal is, you know, that 808 is what's hitting above 0 and getting up to, at worst, +3. So there's probably like, you know, at most negative or like, you know, 6 decibels of soft clipping going on here, like in terms of reduction from peak until where the ceiling is set. But ultimately we can't really hear much of it when it's down that low because the signal is still pretty weak. We add that 4 decibels of gain back, and you can kind of hear where the soft clipper is folding that fundamental frequency back down into the song and kind of giving it that shaking effect. Now there are other ways to do this. Technically, you could use like sidechain. You could sidechain your vocals from your 808, and you could have like a gate, like a volume automation, like using Shaperbox or something to just kind of cut out when the 808 hits hard to follow the waveform. That's fine and gives you more like ability to kind of master your song in a more traditional sense. But I wanted this album to sound kind of in the realm of that overly distorted, loud new age sound that people are doing. But I wanted it to be clean and not too detrimental to the vocals and to the overall sound of the track. And I think that by basing most of the distortion and soft clipping onto the 808 and letting it fold over everything else, it gave a pretty cool effect.
Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And I'm still trying to ball. How many more mistakes until I let myself fall? Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Taking all these drugs, I feel like Pablo. Cheese charm, party's not the issue. I be high low, high strong. Take another hit until I'm right on. Can't go on like yesterday. Can't keep folding all my life like it's a fucking game. Get out in the morning, let go of the smile that you're forcing. Was it really worth it? Take another hit to stop the hurting. Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror, I see another face. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And I'm still going hard. How many more mistakes until I get it, baby doll? Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Taking all these drugs, I feel like Pablo. Cheese charm, party's not the issue. I be high low, high strong. Take another hit until I'm right on. Grab another tissue, another eye roll. I'm gone. Taking all these drugs, I feel like Pablo. Cheese charm, party's not the issue. I be high low, high strong. Take another hit until I'm right on.
So as you can see, we were able to get like a decently loud master. I mean, we're sitting at like negative. I mean, I think the integrated was like -6. Yeah, integrated was like -6 with our momentary max and -4.3. And we're still having a true peak max of 0.1. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say here is that I was able to get, and this isn't even as loud as I went on the album, but I was able to get a pretty loud master on the basis of for rap. I mean, this is like starting to get into the EDM range of stuff, and without introducing a distortion that was detrimental to the vocal or really anything to the track. Really, what we're distorting is the 808. And we're able to do this on an already limited 2-track. So basically, when it comes to the mastering, using a clipper in accordance with a limiter, setting your ceiling at an appropriate level where it's only affecting the 808 and having the vocals lay under that so it's not affected by the soft clipping, and then gaining back up past the limit of what that ceiling was set to apply a little bit of limiting, but also to just kind of squish it all together and bring out some of the saturation that we cut into the waveform. It will give kind of the effect of like the whole song shaking when that bass comes in.
I'm gone. Ain't it still yesterday? Wash my hands, look in the mirror, don't see another way. Roll another blunt, she gonna call. And I'm still trying to ball. How many?
And kind of give that bass the ability to escape the speakers is really what this, for me, for my ears, really is what defined the sound and what I did on this project and on this song. Um, so I hope some of that inspired you guys if you're recording music. Uh, yeah, if you guys like the video, if you want me to do some of the other songs from the album, let me know. And yeah, hope you use some of these methods and make some cool stuff.